Okay, let's unpack this. When you think about land being leased for hunting, what kind of person or, well, property do you picture? Because this deep dive today is going to show you that the reality is far more diverse and, frankly, more fascinating than most of us probably imagine. Today, we're diving deep into the surprising variety of landowners involved in hunting leases, and crucially, the diverse reasons why they choose to lease their land. Our core source material for this is a really interesting article published today, actually July 2, 2025. It's titled Base Camp Leasing's Different Landowners All Matter.
Okay.
So our mission here, it's really to challenge those common assumptions about who leases land for hunting and to reveal the significant, often overlooked benefits for, well, the surprisingly wide array of property owners. The first thing that really jumps out from this article is how it just immediately tackles a stereotype, doesn't it?
It really does.
It directly confronts that kind of dismissive idea that landowners involved in leases are, just the redneck farmers out in the country.
Right.
Yeah, it pushes back hard on that image right away. And what's fascinating, I think, is how the source immediately broadens our perspective. It emphasizes that landowners truly come from, and this is their quote, different backgrounds, cultures, walks of life, and more. So it's less about a specific demographic, it's more about a shared need or maybe an opportunity related to their land.
Right.
Which really sets the stage for a much more inclusive way of understanding property leasing.
Okay, so we've sort of stripped away that common misconception, but it's not just that typical image. Who are these people then? The article takes us on this really interesting tour detailing the incredibly diverse types of landowners currently using leases. It highlights individuals, for starters,
Yeah.
men and women, all ages, etc.
All ages, yeah.
And their motivations are really varied too. Sometimes it's purely income-driven.
Mm-hmm.
Other times they just want like an extra set of eyes on their property. What do you think about that range, just for individuals?
Well, it's a really crucial distinction, isn't it? It shows us that for many people, whether they live on the property or are absentee owners,
Right.
a hunting lease isn't just about the cash. That extra set of eyes, like you said, offers this invaluable sense of security. Oversight.
Oversight, good word.
Which can be just as important, maybe even more important for some than the actual financial return. It suggests a really proactive approach to managing their property.
And the diversity doesn't stop there with individuals.
Yeah.
It seems to widen out even more when we think about professional backgrounds.
Right.
The analysis shows that people from all sorts of professional backgrounds, blue collar or white collar is the phrase they use.
Yeah, I saw that.
They see good reason to lease their land, and they enjoy the benefits from working with a hunting lease agency. What does that tell us about how broad the appeal is?
I think it tells us the benefits are, well, universal enough maybe, that they resonate across really different career paths and lifestyles. It's clearly not some niche interest for just one group. It implies the core advantages, whether that's money or security or land management, they're compelling, no matter what your day job is.
You know, what I found particularly surprising maybe was the point about economic status. The article flat out states that wealthy or poor landowners alike stand to gain.
Mm-hmm.
Does it get into why that is, how this benefit applies equally across such different financial situations? It seems a bit counterintuitive at first glance.
That's a fantastic point to dig into. And yes, it does explain it. It's less about the sheer amount of money, I think, and more about the type of benefit it provides.
Okay, how so?
Well, for wealthier landowners, it might be about, say, optimizing assets they aren't really using much, or managing liabilities, especially on big tracts of land.
Sure, liability is huge.
Or even specific wildlife management goals they might have. But for landowners with maybe fewer resources, that increased passive income can be, well, truly transformative.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's a consistent, reliable financial baseline, something that isn't necessarily tied to farming cycles or market ups and downs.
Right, independent income.
Exactly. So it's kind of like the same solution, the lease, is solving different problems for different people. It's just about making the land work for them, whatever their situation.
And it's not just individuals. Based on their job or how much money they have, the article also points out that families are involved too.
Yes, families are a big part of it.
It says families who own property lease through Base Camp Leasing as well. And that could be, a father and mother with kids at home, or maybe a property owned together by multiple family members.
Right.
That really seems to emphasize the collective benefits, doesn't it? Especially for managing assets that are shared within a family.
Oh, absolutely. Think about land that's been in the family for generations.
Yeah.
or maybe property inherited by several siblings, leasing gives them a structured way to get income from that shared asset. It can potentially reduce arguments, maybe?
Good point.
And it helps ensure the land is looked after without just one family member having to shoulder the whole burden. It really streamlines things, especially when ownership is kind of complex.
So we've covered individuals, families. What about more formal ownership structures? The article talks about trusts and even companies getting value here.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
It says pretty clearly that properties owned by trusts are excellent candidates for hunting leases. Now, for people managing trusts, those are, legal setups where one party holds property for someone else, like a family member or an organization.
Like a fiduciary responsibility.
Exactly. For them, the article highlights using an agency to manage the hunter-landowner relationship. That seems key, simplifying what could be a complicated process.
Absolutely simplifies it. And then for businesses, whether it's a big corporation or a smaller LLC, a limited liability company, which lots of businesses use to manage assets, the benefits there seem even more strategic, maybe? Well, the analysis shows leasing can directly improve the business's bottom line. That's pretty straightforward. But it also helps minimize trespassing and decrease overall liabilities.
Okay, still sounds like the individual benefits.
Yes, but think scale. And what's particularly interesting for businesses, especially big landholders like timber companies or maybe large farms, is the mention of managing deer population densities.
Ah, right. Wildlife management as a business tool.
Exactly. That can be a serious concern for them. So leasing becomes a way to leverage the land for multiple purposes beyond just its primary business use.
The article also makes a really clear distinction based on whether the owner is actually on the property or not.
Yes, on-site versus absentee.
For the on-site owners, people living there, it seems it's often about making some money from the land if they don't enjoy hunting themselves or don't plan to hunt there.
Right, very pragmatic.
Just a practical way to monetize land they live on without having to be involved in the hunting part themselves.
And this brings us back perfectly to the absentee owners, because for them, that extra set of eyes benefit we talked about, it becomes absolutely crucial. It's a genuine value proposition.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you own land, you can't visit often.
Exactly. Having hunters around who are paying for the privilege provides this significant layer of security, that maybe traditional methods like fences or occasional checks might miss.
Yeah.
The source is very clear. Hunters have a vested interest in preventing trespassing, poaching, property damage, and other unwanted occurrences. Why? Because they're invested. They paid for the lease.
They want to protect their hunting spot.
Precisely. So this isn't just about security in a passive sense. It fundamentally shifts the burden of, vigilance. For absentee owners, it transforms what could be a source of constant worry, what's happening on my land, into an unexpected asset.
It's almost like having a neighborhood watch program, but funded by the hunters themselves.
That's a great analogy. It really is. And that's a powerful, often overlooked benefit that goes way beyond just the check they receive.
So pulling this all together, what does this mean for you listening, maybe as a landowner, or even just for understanding how property can be used differently? The article sums up many advantages. First, the obvious one, more passive income, a consistent income stream.
The financial side.
It calls this a financial baseline seasonally, which is interesting, independent of, say, farming income or market swings. It even uses the phrase set and forget opportunities with regular lease payments.
Yeah. That consistency is key. But beyond the clear financial gains, the source highlights things like decreased trespassing, we've touched on that, and diminished liability concerns, which for any landowner, that's an enormous relief.
Right, absolutely. Huge.
And then there are practical benefits, too, like possible trail clearing or even potential property maintenance done by the hunters. That can save landowners real time and money. And importantly, it also notes responsible wildlife management and fostering respectful relationships with hunters.
So it's a whole package of benefits.
It really is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it seems clear that hunting leases offer this symbiotic relationship. It goes far beyond just money for one specific type of landowner.
Yeah.
It's really about optimizing how land is used, benefiting a really diverse group of property owners, and providing security, management help, and that consistent income.
This deep dive, it's really shown us that leasing land for hunting isn't just for a narrow demographic. It's a viable option for, individuals, families, trusts, even companies, regardless of their background or their financial status. It really broadens our understanding of who a landowner even is these days. And those surprising benefits, they go way beyond just income, don't they? They hit on crucial things like property security, wildlife management, and a big one, liability reduction.
It definitely does. And, this raises an important question, I think. In a world where everyone's trying to maximize the utility and the security of their assets.
Right, getting the most out of what you have.
Exactly. How might we rethink the value of land that's maybe undeveloped or just underutilized? Think beyond its conventional uses and really consider, as the article puts it, the monetary return it may hold through these kinds of innovative partnerships like hunting leases.
That's a really interesting final thought. Definitely something to consider if you have land that fits any of these descriptions we've talked about. Or even if you just think about land use in general. The potential applications seem far more diverse than you might have initially imagined.